So here we are today at the BCG Corack trial site. What we're trying to demonstrate here is some resistant radish issues. The soil type here is probably around about a neutral pH, I'd say, and a more sandy sort of a rise, I'd say. So it's pretty typical to a lot of the mallee area.
Yes.
We'll go through this trial site. We've got lots of different products, generally on their own, and we've seen a lot of escapes and some good stories here.
We're finding all the common brews, the LVE and eclipses just aren't working anymore, and we're getting a lot of late germinators, particularly since 2010.
Yep.
And we're really concerned that growers aren't changing their practices before they get resistance. The grower himself has gone into a clear field rotation, and if you walk through there, you'll actually find there's a lot of escapes too. And if you go into the clear fields for brome grass and you've now got radish in there that's resistant, it puts pressure on how you're going to manage the brome grass as well. So it's not just a managing radish, it's a managing weeds in general, and it's going to really put a lot of pressure on growers in the mallee and that can't afford to spend $110 on herbicide costs. So Dean, this is the plot we do our assessments on. This is where the radish was quite early on.
Yep.
You can see by the flowering, it is a control. It's had no herbicide on it, and there's all these young germinating radish plants coming up through here too.
So we're in a very high pressure situation here.
Yep.
You know, not only radish, we've got a lot of capeweed there, brome grass as well. So Simon, we're here in a brodal trial with the second timing. Brodal's definitely not registered on wheat, but can you just explain the reasons why we've actually done this trial, please?
This treatment is simply in here because we want to know what herbicide group is resistant.
Yep.
So brodal is a group F, and diflufenicin. That diflufenicin component is also in Tigrex and also Jaguar as well. So we want to know, okay, if we had a full rate, is there resistance at all, or are we losing the resistance to the lower rates which we find in of the active in Tigrex and Jaguar. So this is if we're seeing any green plants here, we've pretty much got resistance to the DFF component, and you can just see here that some of these plants haven't even been touched. Yet some of them are showing some typical signs here. But they're going to come through, and I guess this is a really good extension material for growers to say, if this person wanted to go into a field pea or something else next year, you know, that he doesn't have that brodal option available to him.
So would it be fair enough to say in this situation that the diflufenicin on its own is not actually working? So if we're using a product, say like Tigrex, in this situation, puts a lot of pressure on the MCPA in that mix, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because the group F is not actually working on its own.
Exactly. And the other important thing about this timing, this was sprayed at the 3-leaf stage. These quite large radish plants have a pretty big seed set, and the crop was quite young, 3-leaf stage, so the crop competition against the radish is pretty small as well. So therefore, this radish plant has a big opportunity to set a lot of seed.
So Simon, we're here in a second timing of Tigrex. This is actually what we would classify as our probably standard treatment, and as we've seen in this population, the group F, the diflufenicin, is probably struggling.
The other side of things, we're certainly not seeing a heap of phenoxy damage, which makes me a bit concerned that if the diflufenicin is resistant, well, it does put pressure on the phenoxy side, or the group I, the LVE component, and we're not seeing those effects even typical to these weeds that are present here. The splitting, the octopus tentacles sort of look about it. So, you know, I'm probably more reinforcing that it's probably both resistant to both the group F and the group I.
We see another traditional type of spraying program here. This is Eclipse at 5 grams and LVE at 500 mil at the mid-tillering stage. So these are the results.
Yeah, look, and that's what we're seeing a lot of. There's 1 or 2 plants that have just been unaffected by the spray whatsoever. You can see the residual of the Eclipse working on some of the smaller stuff, but you're probably still seeing only one out of 2 plants being affected, and the other ones coming through. So a big concern for most guys around this area.
Yeah, so this is just showing that the combination of the group B and the group I, where it's worked in the past, now is not working at all. So well, it is working to a certain extent, but not good enough.
You really want that group I and group B for later on the season.
Yep.
And you can see here we're not going to be able to touch these big plants, and that's
Yep.
You know, just a loss of really good chemistry.
So Simon, here we have a first timing of velocity.
Yep.
All right, we probably can see some regrowth here.
So yeah, it's not really regrowth, it's just a later germination.
Yep.
Looking early on, the velocity did a very, very good job at killing what was here, and this pin marker just reflects, you know, that did have plenty of radish there.
Right.
At spraying.
Yep.
And it subsequently got these other little plants that are coming through. Now, we're probably hoping the crop competition is going to help out a bit, but if we do get a wet spring, any of these later germinations, if not controlled, would set seed.
Right.
So that's why we definitely need, even with velocity, a second spray strategy. By getting rid of that earlier germinating radish, you're giving the best opportunity for the group I and Bs to work on these smaller radish when you come and spray them.
Yep.
Because they are small.
Yep.
If you're trying to use those products when they're large, you're just really going to struggle and put those herbicides on a lot of pressure.
So this is where we use our Amine and Eclipse if it still works. That's the issue, I guess.
The other big thing about velocity is coverage.
Yep.
And you know, when you get some decent canopies, you know, we've got some brome grass here that is also a problem in this paddock. Getting all those later germinating ones with the velocity might be very difficult, whereas the Amine and the Group B will actually probably help out a lot more with that.
We've got first timing of flight in this one.
Yep.
So same as the velocity, first timing. So we've got good early control. Yep. And once again, we've got a few late ones come through.
Yeah, so flight is another premier product, and it has worked very, very well as a spray. But I guess the message we're trying to get to our members and our growers is that think about modes of action, and flight has got F, C and I. If you have used LVE twice and you want to use it again later on, or that's the chemical that's used the most,
yep.
Well, you're probably giving another hit, so it's not helping that situation very well. As a comparison to velocity, it certainly had the same effect, but if I want to now come in with a group I, Amine and a B, well, I've used the Amine twice, whereas with the velocity, I'm using group H and C, so two chemicals I'm not going to use later on in terms of mode of action. So it's a good rotational tool of your herbicides. Velocity's got a better fit early on.
So would it be a fair enough assumption to say that a lot of growers really need to be actually going back, looking at what they've actually used and work out where they're at with this resistance problem? If they've used Group I, Group B and Group Fs and they've got escapes, they've got to work out where they're at.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree. It's also an agronomist's point of view. Like, the agronomist has to be game enough to tell him, spend the money now on premier products rather than be down the track where all we're relying on is the premier products.
Yep.
And that they will fall down eventually too if overused.
That's right.
So the herbicide resistance message is to use as many herbicides as you can of different modes of actions to tackle the weed as best possible.
Yep.
Rather than worry about the individual year cost, because it's going to cost you a lot more down the track.
Yeah.
And this paddock here, as you said, we've got potentially 3 modes of action of chemicals that are potentially losing its value.
Yep.
Now, this farm, his crop options become narrower and narrower as he goes longer.
Yeah.
Like the use of pulse crops, particularly with a Group F not being the system, you know, what pulse crops can he grow? And then that puts,
not many.
Not many. So then it puts pressure on nitrogen management. How much more expense is he going to have with nitrogen in the future because he can't get that pulse to give him nitrogen? So it's a whole system approach. And if we can get guys to spend, you know, another $5 to $10 on a chemical in the cereal phase to take the pressure off those chemicals we really need in the pulse, then we're going to find the system is more robust and more sustainable heading into the future.
Thanks very much for your time today, Simon. Been very interesting trial site this. We'll keep an eye on it throughout, you know, later in the spring.
It's been great to do it, and I guess a piece of the puzzle of the bigger issues we're all dealing with around the mallee and the northern wimmera. Certainly broadleaf weed resistance is growing, not just in radish, but to prickly lettuce and a few other broadleaf weeds. And we're just really trying to get growers through these sites to increase their awareness of broadleaf weed resistance, and also not just herbicide control, but non-chemical means of controlling seed set, and we're looking at all those things. So yeah, stay tuned, and it's been great to sort of show you through the trials.